Liquify tool has been used by photographers, retouchers, and models for years. Does its popularity hold up? Let's find out. To get started, duplicate the image you intend on using by holding Ctrl-J once, then right-click on it and convert it to Smart Object. We do this because we want to retain the information about the changes that will take place once we use the Liquify tool. So when you want to make small adjustments, you can easily go back and do that, specifically in scenarios when you're working for a client who will ask for revisions. So with the duplicated layer selected, go to Filter, Liquify. On the left hand side, you'll see a variety of tools, and on the right hand side, the first tab you'll see is the brush tool options. Inside are adjustments for 9 of the brushes available. If I select the first brush known as the forward warp tool, I can manipulate the image like Liquid, pushing areas in or out depending on the results I'm trying to produce. The size slider determines how much surface area I will have an effect on. I can either increase it if I need to cover a larger area, or decrease it to be more precise. It's a good rule of thumb to keep the size in proportion to what you're targeting. So if I want to make this model's nose smaller, I would keep the size something like this. The density slider refers to how much mass is applied to your brush. To demonstrate this, I will firstly increase the pressure and density to 100%, and as I paint, you can see how prominent and rounded the adjustment is in conjunction with my brush. If I reduce the density to 0% and paint simultaneously, we can see how minuscule the adjustment is. We can understand that reducing the density will reduce the radius of the brush. Inversely, the pressure slider represents how much force is applied. Let's say our density and pressure is set to 100%. It will be effortless to paint in on our subject. However, once the pressure is eliminated and set to 0%, it's practically impossible to have any impact. You can interpret pressure as energy. The more of it you use, the quicker the results. Lastly, the rate slider is only applicable to 2 out of the 9 brushes, which we'll cover later. The second brush, known as the Reconstruct tool, can be used to revert or restore adjustments made with the Warp tool. So, if I paint something with the Warp tool and partially change an area, I can use the reconstruction brush like this to bring it back to its original state. The brush tool options are connected to this brush, so you can play around with it and see what works best for you. The Twirl tool is a bit of a gimmick and does exactly what it says. I haven't found any use for it in portrait editing, but I'm sure it's there for a reason. Next are the Pucker and Bloat tools. You can identify them as the Squeeze and Stretch tools. Holding the Pucker tool will make selections smaller, and the Bloat tool will make selections bigger. The Rate slider applies to these 2 brushes and simply means speed, as in the speed that the brush will make adjustments if you hold it down. We can see that if it's set to 100%, it's like a vacuum, and at 10%, it's manageable to work with. Moving on, newcomers frequently misunderstand the Push Left tool because they use it like any other brush found in this toolbar. The method of this brush is found in the direction that you use it. For example, adjusting down liquefies the selection to the right, adjusting up liquefies the selection to the left, left liquefies down, and right liquefies up. I'll leave a key on screen now if you want to pause the video and take note for future reference. The Freeze tool mask is useful whenever you need to exclude your image before editing. This just ensures areas in red don't get affected when you use other brushes. And with the For mask tool, you can remove or refine it. Which brings us on to the next major feature of Liquify, the Face tool. When you select this tool and hover your cursor over a face, you'll be able to see these lines pop up for areas that can be adjusted. Before you do anything, make sure to open the Face Aware Liquify tab on the right hand side and study the options available. Consider this the secret sauce for all things to do with the Kardashians. I'm not going to get into detail since it's up to you to explore the possibilities. The only thing you need to know is that each adjustment is singular until you enable linking with the chain icon. So let's say that you want to adjust your subject's eye size. You can do that either in the panel here, or by holding and dragging one of the points directly on the image with the face tool selected. Below, we also have load mesh options. A mesh just refers to the settings you applied to this image. You can save the settings as a mesh and load it in on other images for continuity. A fantastic feature if you have consistent clients that need the portraits retouched in the same way. Further along, mask options is a way to interact with the masks you've already created. For example, I can paint a mask around the face and select invert all to use the opposite effect. The same can be said for view options, where you can adjust the mesh size, useful for precision and guidance, as well as mask color if you're working on darker skin tones. Finally, the brush reconstruction options are there if you want to gradually revert back to the image's unedited state with a slider. Or restore everything to original. If you enter productivity, you can hover your cursor over each tool to check what letter is associated with it. I recommend just starting with the hand and zoom tool. You can zoom by pressing Z once on your keyboard and right-clicking with your mouse to move in closer. Additionally, holding Alt to zoom out. Once you zoomed in, you also want to use the hand tool by pressing H to move freely on the image. And don't forget to use the preview box to compare the before and after as you're working. And this was Design Dummy.